In general, would you rather feel scared, sad, or angry? Now, fear, sadness, and anger are generally looked at as negative emotions, but depending upon the person or the circumstances involved, they can be looked at as positives, or at very least desirable. And the clearest example of these three regards fear. There's a whole genre of movie making for scary movies or horror movies. You've also got things like roller coasters and or haunted houses or extreme sports like bungee jumping or skydiving, where the idea is to elicit the thrill of fear in people. There's pretty clearly a market for this sort of thing, for people who are seeking out the thrill of fear. Now, in fact, if you do a Google search, you could go into Google and you could put in why do people like to feel scared or why do people like to feel afraid? And you'll get a fair amount of information. There's a lot of sort of message board discussions about this, and there are even some scientific studies that look into why people like to feel afraid. So there's a lot of information out there. There isn't quite as much info about why people like to feel sad, but it is out there. And the market for sadness isn't quite as clear as the market for fear, but it's pretty clearly there too. There isn't a whole big genre of movie making for sad movies, but there are clearly sad movies. I mean, or at least movies that people will go to and expect to feel sad and so forth. And also in music, maybe even more clearly, there are breakup songs and lost love songs, songs that by any sort of objective measure would be classified as sad songs. So there's pretty clearly a outlet for people who seek out the emotion of sadness, who seek out that emotional response. But if you do a Google search into why do people like to feel sad, you will find some discussion about it. You know, people asking, oh, why do people like to go to see sad movies, that sort of thing. But there aren't real, at least not that I could find, there aren't really any scientific studies that have looked into this as far as I know. And then the least clear of these three is, of course, anger. Now, for example, there aren't really angry movies the way there are scary movies and sad movies. Maybe the closest would be some documentaries that try to that serve as sort of a call to action to people. Oh, something's bad in the world and we gotta do something about it and get angry about it. But no one goes to the movie saying, oh, I'm going to get angry and it's going to be awesome or anything like that. The way they might say, I'm going to go see this sad movie and bawl my eyes out, or I'm going to go see this scary movie and it's going to be terrifying, hopefully. But where you do see anger, where you do see people sort of seek out anger, regards politics or punditry. Maybe you know someone who's into politics and who holds strong views, and they specifically seek out the opinions of people diametrically opposed to them, and in particular, people who express inflammatory opinions that are diametrically opposed to their own. And they get real angry and worked up and about sort of the ridiculousness of the opposing point of view, and you gotta wonder, well, why, if it makes you so angry, why do you watch those people? But some people do that. But if you go into Google and you type, why do people like to feel angry, there isn't really much of anything out there. There's a couple of little questions I found, but it's not a big topic of discussion. It's not something that any real studies have been done on as far as I know. So it's sort of the least thought about of these three. And there are some interesting parallels regarding which of these three emotions are present in which parts of our culture. As I've already sort of gone over, there's a lot of scary movies There's a fair number of sad movies, but there aren't really angry movies. But then when you move on to music, you'll find there's a lot of sad songs and also a fair number of angry songs. I think of Rage Against the Machine, or a fair amount of rap can be angry, and I had another good example. A lot of breakup songs sort of take an angry tack. Instead of being sad about the breakup, being angry at the person who broke up with you, that sort of thing. So, but in music, there isn't really scary music designed to make you feel scared. So, it's different than movies in sort of which of these emotions show up. And then when you look at politics, you'll find a lot of anger, obviously. And you also find a fair amount of fear. Well, if the other guys get elected, ooh, who knows what might happen? Ooh. But you won't really find sadness in politics or punditry commentary. In fact, the place where you sort of think you'd see the most sadness, you don't really see all that much. Think of a politician's concession speech. Politicians just lost a race. They're coming up for their supporters to let their supporters know, to let the media know, okay, we've lost. It's sad. It's bad. But we're going to move on. We're going to be strong. And usually at those, you don't see people crying at those, at least not that I've noticed. But you see a lot of anger, maybe, or determination, even maybe a sort of false bravado. But you don't see sadness there, even though it's the biggest. There was all this emotion put into a campaign and it failed. That should be the saddest time, but you don't really see it. So it's interesting how in different spheres of human life, different negative emotions sort of are expressed or are sought out in those and not in others. And I thought that was interesting. Well, what I'd like to sort of hear from, if you watch this video all the way through, I'd like to sort of hear which of these negative emotions do you like the best? Which of them do you not like? Maybe you seek out all three in different times, depending upon how you're feeling. Maybe you don't like any of them, and you don't really see why anyone would. Maybe you really like one and don't like the others. But that's something I'm definitely curious about. And also, if you think that maybe there are some other negative emotions that could sort of fit in with this theory, go ahead and mention them. I sort of look at fear, anger, and sadness as sort of the three primary or cardinal negative emotions. So that's what I'm focusing on. But maybe you think there's some others that could be included in here. Anyway, thank you for watching, and thank you for your time.